We've got Trump Senior Communications Advisor Jason Miller joining me now. Good to have you, Jason. What do you think of the Dems trying to push the blame on Russia? Is there proof of that?
No, and in fact, this has been proven false. Even the New York Times said that it was ridiculous. No truth whatsoever. But look, I think what you're seeing from the Clinton campaign is a desperate campaign in its final days. It's being barraged with these hits, hits of the truth regarding this FBI investigation, and they're just trying to lash out to try to distract away from what's really going on.
And watch this. Buried on page 821 of the New York Times, there's this headline: investigating Trump, FBI sees no clear link to Russian government, and says, quote, law enforcement officials say that none of the investigations so far have found any link between Mr. Trump and the Russian government, and even the hacking into Democrat emails. FBI now believes was aimed at disrupting the presidential election rather than electing Mr. Trump. Buried on A21, there was some kind of a computer server or some Trump organizer's computer server was communicating with an Alpha bank, a bank in Russia, and it looks like it was just marketing and it was innocuous. That's what the New York Times and the FBI is saying.
Well, and it wasn't even real communication.
Like it was spam. It was spam, right?
Effectively, yes.
Yeah.
But what we did see today in those WikiLeaks emails, which I know we're going to get to in just a minute, is the fact that President Clinton wanted to make sure that the Clinton Foundation would still take foreign money, even if Hillary were to somehow win this race. And so I know we're going to get to that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's take a look at what else we've got here for you. The Clinton team was scrambling on March 2nd, 2015. This was the day that the New York Times bombshell came out that Hillary Clinton used a personal email server while running the State Department as Secretary of State, possibly breaking the rules, and that put the Clinton campaign into chaos. In newly released WikiLeaks emails, Clinton campaign staffers talk about dumping emails. We've got Clinton campaign chair John Podesta emailing Clinton aide Cheryl Mills on that same day, March 2nd, saying this: we're going to have to dump all those emails, so better to do so sooner than later. And for context, this email went out 2 days before the congressional subpoena from the House Oversight Committee on Benghazi to preserve all documents. And this is the same month of the conference call between Clinton attorney David Kendall, Cheryl Mills, and Platte River. That was the company that used a program called BleachBit to acid wash out the emails, right?
Well, if you're trying to explain why Mr. Trump is doing so well in the polls and why he's really captured this movement and so many Americans want to see it change, it's because of nonsense like this. You know, we have to drain the swamp. That's why Mr. Trump's put forward some real substantive policy proposals to make sure that this same incestuous group of lobbyists and insiders aren't continuing to do this. And when you see the government entities and fundraising and foreign governments all tangled up into one, I think most people say, hey, let's throw these bums out and get some new leadership in.
You know, it also came, that same day, March 2nd, was when John Podesta and Neera Tanden were emailing each other saying, essentially, why didn't they take care of this 18 months before? Who was responsible for this? And, you know, and they're basically saying that they were going to move to basically enact possibly a cover-up. That's what the talk now is on the campaign trail. What are you hearing?
Well, I think you're exactly right. And in fact, I think the line that they used was whoever set this up should be drawn and quartered, which not that we're necessarily advocating for that. But I think this all goes to the issue of we're not just talking anymore about confidential and classified information. We're also talking about the specter of obstruction of justice. And this is a big deal. Yeah,
Neera Tanden is saying that they wanted to get away with it. That's why they basically set up the private email server. That's coming out of the WikiLeaks, too. And, you know, 5 days later, Cheryl Mills was essentially saying, this is March 7th, that we've got to watch it because President Obama was emailing Hillary Clinton on that private email server. And Cheryl Mills saying, we've got to clean this up. He's got emails from her that they do not say state.gov, even though he was saying at the time he didn't know she was using a private server.
Well, and I think the other thing we can't lose sight of is why this entire outside system was set up. And that's when you talk about the interplay between the Clinton Foundation. We learned last week about the Doug Band memo, how they can essentially make $66 million by selling access to the State Department, how this all comes together and why they were running this outside system. Look, it stinks, and I think there's a reason why the FBI took these remarkable steps only 11 days out.
We also have news reports that the FBI is investigating Trump former advisor Paul Manafort for his, quote, dealings with foreign countries, meaning possibly advising the Ukraine. What are you hearing about that?
Mr. Trump and Mr. Manafort severed ties months ago, and so you have to ask Mr. Manafort about that, but that doesn't have anything to do with our campaign.
Yeah, it should be right. Getting back to the deletion of the emails, more than 31,000 emails were deleted between March 25th and March 31st. and that was 3 weeks after the congressional subpoena went out. And at this time, the Clinton campaign was in chaos. They were scrambling on how to deal with it, talking about dumping emails and basically saying, you know, why didn't they get the stuff out because before? Why was she using private servers? She wanted to get away with it. We've got more new emails from WikiLeaks. Hillary Clinton's own top advisors now suggesting that the candidate is tainted when it comes to reforming bribery laws. So in other words, top aide Jake Sullivan writes, maybe this is a good idea. Let's get out an anti-government corruption push, and maybe a government reform push. Basically, talking about the idea of strengthening bribery laws to ensure politicians don't change legislation for political donations. Jake Sullivan writes, this is really dicey territory for HRC, right? And Neera Tanden writes back, she may be so tainted, she's really vulnerable. So what do you make of that?
Well, this is one big fundraising operation. Everything about the Clintons comes back to raising money. How do they pocket money? How do they get more money for their next reelect? How do they take care of their donors? That's not how most people live their lives. They're worried about paying the bills and putting food on the table. And to see this coming out of Washington, I think it really frustrates them.
What do you make of Trump pushing higher in the polls? What's happening?
I think a couple of things. I think the thing that really helped kickstart it last week, I think Republicans starting to unite and come together. I think these Obamacare premium increases that are coming across, people are getting these letters saying your premiums are going up between 25% or up to 116%, like we've seen in Arizona. And then I think this big bombshell that dropped with the Clinton Inc., $66 million, and then of course the FBI news on Friday. All jumbled together, I think people realize, hey, we need someone in there going drain the swamp, kick these guys out, and let's go and put in some real reform so the Clintons aren't running the show. We saw what they did in the 90s. We don't need any more of that drama again.
Jason Miller of the Trump campaign, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.